And okay. If you can all hear me, those of you that I can see, can you just wave your hand hello so I know you're there? Okay. And if you want to, you can be on camera, that's great, or not, that's fine. My name is Jason Feld, and I want to be the first to thank you for accepting our invitation to join this webinar. If you're on the East Coast, it's evening. If you're here in Arizona, it's the afternoon. It will be for a number of hours. And I know some colleagues are joining from Washington State as well. So welcome to everybody. I'm going to briefly introduce myself, and then Alex will, and then Linda will actually start the formal presentation. But we thought it would be good to just let you know who we are and where we're from. So as I said earlier, my name is Jason. I'm the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of ReadyCoach, which is why the invitation came from me. Just in terms of my profession, I am an educational psychologist and have been working in the assessment and curriculum area for the past 30 years. My role in ReadyCoach has been to work with Rutgers University and Arizona State University to help transition all the research that Alex and Linda have done, along with their colleagues over the past 10 years, into the public domain, so that the technology that has been developed can effectively be utilized by school systems. So that is my primary role. And so having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex real quickly so he can introduce himself to the group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Kurtz. I apologize. My camera is actually on this side, so I'm not looking directly at you. I'm a researcher at Arizona State University. I've been at ASU for the past 10 years. I actually came from Vanderbilt, which is in Nashville, where I got my doctorate. Prior to that, I was a special education teacher. I taught high school in Tennessee and as well in San Diego. And I come from a family of educators. My main focus is instructional coaching and teacher effectiveness at the intersect of special education. So being focused on students with externalizing behavior disorders is kind of my jam. So that's why you'll see that ReadyCoach includes components related to behavior and applied behavior analysis. Thank you. Linda?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm in New Jersey, so it's about dinner time for me. And I'm Linda Reddy. I'm a professor at Rutgers University, and I actually went to grad school out in Arizona. So for the folks in Arizona, I was a wildcat at University of Arizona, and that's when I met Jason. But I'm out here, and I'm an academic researcher. My whole career, 25 years, has been in public schools and working with teachers and school leaders. And a lot of my work has been in the area of supporting teachers and paraprofessionals in terms of implementing interventions. And this is what our presentation's about, is our collective work we've been doing with schools for many, many years. And with that said, just for everyone to know, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I will not be able to see anybody. This is unfortunate. I won't be able to see your faces, but let me start sharing my screen, and I'll do a brief presentation about ReadyCoach. And then Alex is going to show it, some of the features live for us today. So we're thrilled. We're here to talk about our new technology we've been developing and the training we've developed for helping instructional coaching in teachers. So as I mentioned, this has been a collaborative process in developing ReadyCoach. It's a research-based technology for education. Rutgers University, Arizona State University, Alex and I have been working together for many, many years. But I want you to know that the technology that you're about to see has been completely developed with school partners, charter schools, and private schools out here in the Northeast. And collectively, we've developed a data-driven coaching model with technology enhancements for the area of reading and social behavior. And we've been really fortunate as a team with our school districts to be awarded quite a bit of funding. We've also done research, randomized control trials, which are considered the gold standard for determining effectiveness on moving the needle to improve instructional practices and student learning and social behavior, particularly in reading. And most recently, we're very proud, the U.S. Department of Ed has selected our model, our data-driven coaching model, as a model demonstration system for the country. So over the last 12 years, we've been working a lot with schools in multiple states, and there's some really common educational problems that we all know and can appreciate. One is limited time, and more than ever at this time with the pandemic that we're still in has been really stretched thin. But trying to create technology that helps with time. Also creating technology that would also help folks manage and also decipher their data so they could immediately get at instructional planning and do things in the classroom. The other common problem we've been faced with and that we wanted to incorporate into our work is how can we improve teacher professional development, because traditional workshops have been fairly ineffective in terms of transferring skills into the classroom for many, many years, over 20 years. And also we want to help what a lot of people are struggling with, which is kind of helping kids learn and be successful at school. Now, I want to just make a comment that coaching can make a big difference in this area. And it is there's strong evidence that coaching that's data-driven and that includes very specific coaching actions and focuses on skill needs is now considered the most effective way to improving school personnel skills, and particularly student learning in the area of reading and behavior. And I know that we all know about workshops. I've been to many of them. The country spends about $18 billion a year, the US alone, on traditional workshops. And but unfortunately, the research says it has very little, if no, skill transfer to the classroom. So coaching has emerged as a very viable and effective alternative. And that's why we've been working so hard with our school partners on it. Now, if you're from a school district, and I've worked with many, that you don't have an instructional coach in your school, don't worry, because that's what we're used to. And you don't need to have a full-time coach or a part-time coach, because there's a lot of people in schools that actually are always supporting teachers, paras, and other interventionists that are doing a lot of coaching-like actions. So what we've tried to do in our technology and in our research is to address these common educational problems by embedding machine-like algorithms to help school personnel be very time effective and also effective in terms of improving student outcomes. We've incorporated, and Alex is going to show you these to you really briefly, we've automated data uploads with common assessments. We've also automated the benchmarking of these assessments so that when they get uploaded into the system, you immediately see the benchmarks of student, individual, group, and class-wide. We've also automated group recommendations to help grouping for instructional purposes and behavioral management purposes. And in our system, we do have a load of research-based and recommendations, interventions, and our system allows, if people want, to click on a button, it automatically gives recommendations for interventions that yoke right to school students' skill needs. Also, we have sequence of interventions as well, so that once children master certain skills, particularly in reading, you would have a sequence, or a classroom teacher would have a sequence of interventions. A very, very important part of our work is on monitoring intervention implementation. That is helping school personnel structure and monitor intervention fidelity as a data source and graphing it at the same time looking at students' response to intervention as well. Now, we do this by embedding 6 effective coaching actions that have been from the larger literature and also the research we've done. These actions are structured, supported, and prompt throughout the system to help users make sure that they're using these. They're listed here as identifying student needs with data, planning intervention groups, setting goals that are measurable and specific, modeling effective intervention implementation before implementation, providing ongoing constructive targeted feedback to implementers, and also monitoring what I just mentioned, that intervention, implementation, fidelity, and student progress. Collectively, these 6 actions are very powerful, we have found. They strengthen intervention implementation of research interventions, research-based interventions, which in turn lead to student reading improvement and social behavior. Also, these actions help bolster professional relationships in schools as well, and people feeling supported. And we have found school improvement, and a really important area that we've looked at is retention of teachers and other staff. So our goal in terms of our work has to develop technology to be very effective in time savings for school personnel. Why? Because we want to free up time for you to help you do what you do best and what really creates a passion for you. So with that said, let's take a look now at ReadyCoach, and I'll have Alex start to demonstrate our platform.
All right. Well, my goal right now is to take you straight to the application. As Linda has said, we've embedded those 6 effective coaching actions directly into the application. So by virtue of using it, you are automatically engaged in these 6 highly effective coaching behaviors. So let me take you to the website and then log into the application. You can prompt questions in the chat, and we'll have time to kind of dig into various features and answer some questions at the end. All right. So at this point, you should be seeing my screen. Is that correct? All right, great. You click in, and by the way, here you're free to explore the website at some point. I think one of the taglines here, you can see it on the screen, is to get you from data to instruction in about 60 seconds. So one of the key problems I think we're all facing is we have plenty of assessment data to go around. The question is, what do we do with that data in terms of providing interventions for specific students based on specific needs? Typically, you accomplish that by maybe using an Excel spreadsheet, trying to color code benchmarks, and then sitting down, looking at kids with common needs. And then you look maybe at Google, Teachers Pay Teachers, or some other intervention package to find the intervention that matches those skills. And then our goal was to really automate exactly that flow within the application. All right, so at this point, you should be seeing my screen. I cannot see you, so let me try to move you to the side so I can see you. All right, very good. Okay, so this is the main screen. Let me just orient you to a couple things. On the left-hand side, you see the main menu. That's where we look at intervention groups, data. There's one thing called ABC data collection. That's more for those with a focus on behavior. I'm going to focus right now on getting data into the system. At the very top, you see these 1, 2, 3 steps. One is called gather evidence, and that is our coaching model is predicated on making decisions based on data. So we want coaches, when they meet with teachers, to be focused on student needs and gear professional development around that. So it's not just a general conversation around, I want to improve classroom management. It is more around, okay, what classroom are we talking about? Which students are we talking about? And what are the groups that we're trying to address? And so for that, we need evidence. And most of the time that comes from some type of assessment, whether that's in reading or behavior. The one that I'm pulling up is going to be DIBELS. We are working with a variety of vendors, and you can use, by aligning them on your own, pretty much anything you're using. That being said, we're most efficient with several pre-recognized vendors. DIBELS is one of them. So I'm going to use DIBELS. Going to click here. That's the data screen where we would upload data. This is a brand new account, so I haven't uploaded anything yet. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the DIBEL extract file. This is something you would just pull directly from the application. You know, it has dozens and dozens of columns with data. And ReadyCoach will tell you, oh, I recognize it looks like a Dibbles 8 file. Is that correct? You would say yes. And now the system will go through these hundreds of students and dozens of columns, benchmark them accordingly, and provide the right color codes. So give it just a few seconds. And here we are. So right now, what you see is hundreds of students. The various subtests are listed, all correctly benchmarked. You can filter this by grade level, by teacher. You can look at letter naming fluency. You could actually take this column right now and examine it a little more closely. So right now I can see in kindergarten, we have about 5 students well below the 0 to 30 range for letter naming fluency. You can look at first grade and so on and so forth. You can sort this. You can do multiple column sorts. So let's say I want to look at those kids that are struggling with oral reading fluency. And I would see immediately 4 kids that in grade 1, Mr. Jones's class, that are well below their benchmark for the middle of the year. The areas of need are general flags based on the performance on the benchmarks. If you're well below on certain areas, it will flag them for you. So you can see some students need core support, others need sight words decoding. If you would like to intervene at this point, of course, you can kind of sort the columns and make decisions based on that. Of course, that would require you a considerable amount of time, especially if you have multiple grade levels and multiple teachers per grade level. I'm going to show you the algorithm in just a second. I want to point you towards the right-hand side, the content areas of need, the diagnostic skills. This is an option where you as a teacher can go in and provide additional information on the specific skills. Dibbles, for example, will not give you the specifics underneath phonics. There are very many sub-skills that are discrete that might require additional instruction. And what I'm going to do is, since that is not provided, I'm going to add that for the 4 students here. I'm going to say they have an issue in phonics, but specifically they're struggling with letter sound correspondence for consonant sounds. There are various screeners you can use to provide that information. And ideally, if the algorithm works properly, it should filter out these kids separately because they have a very discrete skill need. Again, this is not necessary, but the power of the algorithm is predicated on giving it as much information as possible because we have hundreds of reading interventions and behavioral interventions in the system. And in order for the algorithm to grab the right one, the more information you provide, the better it is. By the way, if you look at class-wide needs, this would be a flag for 50% or more of the kids struggling in a given area for a teacher. So Mr. Smith down here has several students that are struggling with phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency, over half of them. So at this point, it might actually be better to do whole class instruction. All right. So rather than starting from scratch with making skill-based groups, I'm going to ask the algorithm to make recommendations. So up here on the right-hand corner, you have the option to click on recommend groups. It will take a few minutes, a few seconds, and then group recommendations are popping up. We call these group cards. So what you see here is there are several students listed. Let's pick this group here. There are probably about 9 kids, all with needs in the area of phonics and phonological awareness. They're all kindergarten. Now, you can adjust these groups flexibly. So if the teacher will tell you, Donna should not be in this group because there may be some kids don't get along, so I'd like to have her in this group. You can move kids around easily without a problem. Now, if we're looking at this group here, that's the group for which we identified a specific skill need with consonant sounds. So the algorithm picked those 4 kids out of the 100 of kids we have uploaded, noting that there's not just a need in phonics, but specifically around consonant sounds. So I'm going to stick with that group for now. You can see there is a tier assignment. It's approximate here. We're thinking this is going to be a tier 3 intervention. You can assign interventionists. That may sound a little bit complicated, but all it means is who is the person implementing the intervention. In many cases, the classroom teacher is working with that small group. That being said, we work in districts where perhaps the paraprofessional or a reading specialist comes in and focuses on those skills. So you can make that assignment here. For now, I'm just going to let the teacher be the interventionist. So at this point, the group's ready to be saved. For kids, let's begin by setting a goal. The system will pull up all available data just for those 4 kids. So you can examine it up there in the top window. My focus will be, for now, I'm just going to take oral reading fluency, words read correctly. As you know, in DIBELS, there are lots of probes in the system, so I could progress monitor on ORF probably every week. So that's a great subtest to use for a target outcome measure. And now I have to decide on the target outcome. Now we're in the middle of the year. All 4 students are somewhere between 0 and 8 words read correctly. So they're well below. If I want to set a goal, I have to, of course, not just look at what's below, what's average. I have to look out towards the end of the year. So if I click on end of the year, you should see the ranges adjust automatically. I hope you saw that. That's middle of the year. That's end of the year. So if I want to get these kids up to average, the minimum number for that would be 39 words read correctly. So that's what I'm going to choose. By the way, you can adjust goals for individual kids. For right now, I'm just going to give everybody that goal. I'm going to pick a date. I'm going to say that's going to be June 8th. And now I'm going to set that goal. So that means this intervention card turned green because we have set a goal, 39 words read correctly by June 8th. And now the question is, how do we get them there, right? We have to select an intervention that addresses not just phonics, but specifically consonant sounds. So now I'm clicking on the select intervention button, and the system will take a few seconds to kind of go through our algorithm and pick several recommendations for you. So all these are research-based interventions developed by reading specialists at Rutgers. I'll show you an example here in a second because I want you to see the detail that we have in each intervention. I also want to point out that there are quite a few depending on the letter sound correspondence in question. So you can start with M, then N, then P, and so on and so forth. You can kind of peruse that on your own, but they are sequenced. So if you're not quite sure which letter to address, you can just go in sequence. So you can begin with M and then move with the numbers and letters just as displayed here. So from 310 to 311 to 312 to 313. If you click on the intervention, you get a brief description. You get the intervention implementation steps, right? There are certain aspects of this intervention we all need to address in order to reap the benefits. And that's important because later on, the system will worry about fidelity tracking. It's very important that we implement interventions with all the necessary steps. Otherwise, we really cannot expect students to benefit from the intervention. And we may actually prematurely say, oh, this intervention is not working, when in reality, I have only implemented half of the steps that are needed. So let me open up an intervention because I think you might be curious about how detailed these interventions are. Let me share this tab. I hope you can see this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So this is the intervention I just pulled up, letter sound correspondence for M. There's information about understanding the concepts, prerequisites, estimate time for this particular intervention, information on the skills, the overarching concept, how to provide performance feedback, how to assess for understanding, and it goes straight into the actual intervention. There are scripts, approximate minutes, the materials that you will be using at each section of the intervention. And of course, at the very end, you'll have all necessary materials that you can print and pre-prepare for the intervention. So that is a total of 11 pages for this small letter sound correspondence intervention. All right. I do want to show you the library because I mentioned behavior earlier. So that was an example of a reading intervention. We have well over 40 behavior and social emotional learning interventions. Again, all those interventions are research-based. So let me just pull one up just real quick. This is behavior. So there you go. There are a whole bunch of them to be looked through. If you want to look at, say, behavior contracts, you can click on it. It'll, again, give you a description, key implementation steps. If you want to download a PDF, you would get a PDF on the behavior interventions. They look slightly different, but similar information around the target population, what you can address. Are you interested in expected change of increasing something or decreasing something? Setup, implementation steps, considerations for implementation, and then additional resources. So we have vetted certain YouTube videos as well as PowerPoints and other resources from trusted partners. But again, every single intervention will at least come with one research citation that grounds it in the literature. All right, let me go back. Okay, so we're back. The one thing I wanted to say too is about this library. We have filters available. So what you can do is you can actually narrow the selection down, even if you don't want to use the recommended algorithm. So for behavior, I could say I'm interested in decreasing a behavior, and it's a fairly new behavior. It's a new behavior. You can select target persons, meaning do you want to work with a small group, the whole class, or individuals? So you have ways to kind of filter this down to kind of what you need. All right, now I want to go back to this intervention group, which is now in green because we have selected an intervention. We know what to do. And then the project of monitoring the intervention and goal progress begins. I'm going to use this intervention. By the way, you can modify that as you need it. You can also upload your own district interventions if you follow our intervention template. The reason why we do that is because we want your interventions to be also activated by the algorithm. But for right now, I'm just going to use the intervention as is. I'm going to start working on the group, and I'm going to open up the group workspace. This is how it looks. So once you've selected a student group based on need, and that's needs-based intervention, now the time begins to monitor goal progress as well as implementation fidelity. Now, everything's blank right now because this is a brand new intervention. So I'm going to actually log out of this account and go to a coach that has logged several interventions. Okay. Now, this coach, you will see, features probably, I would say, about a dozen teachers she's working with. And with each teacher that coach is working, there may be multiple intervention groups. There are also some orange dots highlighting a flag, which means our algorithm has noticed something about these intervention groups that require attention. So this is Mr. Jones. Several intervention groups up and running, and we're going to try to focus on a few here. Let's take a look at one of those intervention cards. So this one here has 2 students in the intervention. Average fidelity is 94%. It looks great. Average range 75 to 100. We could open up this space here in a second. Let's take a look at this one here where things are flagged because of low intervention fidelity. So if you open up this screen, you can see your students. There's 3 students here. Let's filter one out. Let's take Ulysses. Ulysses is doing fairly well. I see if I do a trend line on the student, Yep, we're progressing nicely. You can actually juxtapose that with the goal line, which now that you see the goal, you realize, well, he's not really meeting the goal as intended. You also see anytime fidelity was being logged. Now you remember where's that coming from? Well, I, as the coach, most likely at the very beginning of an intervention implementation, will go and visit the teacher, check in, are we clear on the intervention step? Do you require any type of modeling? And if I say, no, I feel pretty confident, I, as the coach, am most likely going to say, all right, let me observe your first session. I'll just come in, I'll sit back, I'll watch your first 15 minutes of this intervention, and I'm going to check off all the steps of the intervention that I'm going to see. So let me use this one here. Oh, there's a lot of students in this one here. Let me open up the group workspace. Let me pick out a student. Let's pick Doreen.
Hey,
Okay.
Alex.
Yes.
I'm getting a lot of great questions in the chat. Keep it up, everyone. I'm typing as fast as I can. Would you explain to folks? Would you explain, folks, about the trend in goal lines? I'm responding to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the trend line is calculated on the initial data points you get. You need at least 3 data points to project a trend of the students. That is an algorithm. Now, of course, the more data you have, the more precise our student trend line will be. That means if the student continues on the same trajectory, where you're going to end up by the time you have set your goal. Like we all set a goal date, and it looks like this one here ended up exactly where we projected the student would end up. I'm sorry, I added a bunch of probes to the right. That's why it looks a little different. And then the goal line is what you said you would achieve based earlier. So clearly we didn't quite get where we wanted to get, but we also have to notice that the fidelity is much less than 100%. So if you look at this probe here, probe 2 with 38%, let's click on it, and you can see 3 steps were implemented and all the other ones were not. So of course that's an issue. Now, as a coach, what I would like to know is, if I've done a couple of visits, are there some things you're always missing? And so if you go back to the group workspace, my apologies, click on the intervention stats, you can see that the teacher was observed 14 times. These are quick observations, 5-10 minutes. But this last step, provided independent practice, was only observed once. And then model the activity or game, that was only observed half of the time. Those are great targets for a discussion with the teacher where you can say, hey, I'm wondering if I should come back and assist you maybe with the modeling activity. Do you want me to take it over one time? Can we talk after school? Because I'm very interested in increasing the fidelity so we can see whether the intervention works with the student or not. In the group workspace, you also have a couple of other functions. If I would combine a behavior and a reading intervention or multiple reading interventions, they would all be stacked up here in the top left. Down here, I can leave comments. So Mr. Jones requested additional resources. I can leave my observation notes here, and I can decide whether I'd share them with him, just me. So you can also keep private notes if you want to. And then let me just show you real quick. When you would do a visit, you would log the goal progress here and the intervention as well. The fidelity is pretty simple. You would go in, I'm observing you on the 3rd. I saw step 1. You did not articulate the objective. You did not explain the game, but you did check for understanding. You provided modeling, some guided practice. There was lots of specific praise and no independent practice. And then you would log. And then the new probe from today, 5-3, would show up with 63%. All right. So I think I want to pause here to allow enough time to answer a couple of questions. There are several other features. I just don't have the time to go into today. One is dealing with behavior and how to identify the function of behavior. Another one deals with access for parents. They would see simply a simplified view of what is done for their child and how their child is progressing. There's also a way to keep track of how effective you're using the system through badges. Kind of, you achieve certain things.
Oh, Alex, please show them the badges. That's great.
Yeah, they're right here.
Yeah.
All right. And just so I hope I was clear earlier, this data is, imagine it as like a data room that both the coach and the teacher can access. So they're all linking to the same data set, and they can work together and manipulate the data together. And so if I, as a coach, make an intervention assignment, or I, as the teacher, that data is shared. And of course, you can communicate through the app if you want to. It's not necessary. And you also can set notifications here within the system. It would allow you to get notified if the system flags something such as low fidelity or low goal progress. These are all ways by which we want to make sure intervention fidelity stays up and you're staying on top of the goal progress of your students. All right. Well, I'm gonna stop here and see what some of the questions are.
Yeah, and as everyone is thinking about their questions, just a couple of comments to follow up on Alex, the things Alex shared on the walkthrough. The reason we call it ReadyCoach and not the ReadyCoach assessment system is that we're not interested in providing assessment tools to school districts. There are a gazillion assessment tools out there. The challenge that we had in developing the technology is to make the data that already exists more valuable to coaches and teachers when they're forming multi-tiered intervention groups, or they're working with gifted children, or they're trying to figure out, how do I really make a measurable difference in moving the students forward prior to the postmortem from a state test or a benchmark assessment, which occur just infrequently during the school year. So really the best way to approach that is to take the data that the school district already has and basically add some value to it to enhance the coaching and teaching process. So in the case of Dibbles, as you've seen here, the system provides very good information about students. What we're doing here is taking that information, and as Alex showed you on the diagnostic end, taking a deeper dive by using information that teachers and coaches know about students, which may not be available just through a straight assessment, and leveraging that to form these very specific intervention groups, which then allow us to link those groups to the research-based interventions in the system. So we're trying to be more pinpointing in terms of the formation and the implementation of learning groups within the classroom. The other thing to point out is, as Linda said earlier, it's one thing to have a lesson plan or to have an intervention or to have a really cool, edutainment type of interface. It's another thing for that to actually work with fidelity. So what we're trying to provide to the coach and the teachers is a tool, a management tool, to help them to deliver intervention with a high degree of fidelity. And if something is not working, they know early on in the game that revisions need to be made because the system is monitoring intervention fidelity and linking that directly to ongoing student progress. So we're trying to bridge the gap that currently exists between, I'm going to teach a lesson and the students will learn, as opposed to enhancing the success of that lesson or that intervention on the goals that have been set for the student. I think Alex mentioned this, but it's worth saying again, the system shares with the teacher pretty much the same information that the coach has. So the communication tool becomes the technology. I think Alex shared where the coach can put notes in there that the teacher can actually see. The coach can add additional resources that the teacher or the group of teachers that they are working with can actually see. So it also functions as a communication tool, and the calendaring aspect of it kind of helps everybody to plan ahead over the course of the school year. So I just wanted to kind of add those few things here, and I'll stop for a moment and see if we have some questions.
That'd be great. Let's hear it. Yeah.
people have been writing in questions, and I've been typing like mad to try to respond with typos. But if other people have further questions, would like to see more about the interventions, we'd be happy to share that.
Okay, Alex, do you want to go ahead and if they come in through the chat, we can pick them up. Do you want to go back to the website for a minute, and we'll kind of point out a few things that might be helpful to the group today?
And if anybody, I just want to put out there, we're going to share out all these materials in the webinar, but if you'd like us to give you a call, like I know I'm going to call Michelle and some other folks, just feel free if you'd like to either email us or put it in the chat. And I'll be happy to call you at a time that's convenient.
So there are a few things that we think would be helpful, where we could be helpful going forward. One of the things that we think is important in terms of any new technology is to actually evaluate the fit between the technology innovation and the needs of the local school system, as opposed to simply presenting the technology as a solution. The approach that we're trying to take with that is to actually work with a district, a team, to conduct a needs assessment. Alex, if you can go down to the bottom of the homepage for a second. We've put a needs assessment link on the bottom of the homepage, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to fill it out. You may ask yourself, why do you want to fill it out? Well, even if you don't talk to us following this, it will give you some good insights into where you currently are. And it will add to those insights and some challenges and perhaps some next steps that you might want to take in enhancing and facilitating coaching and intervention activities in your district. So if you fill out the form, it will be both informational, and it will also trigger an email on our end that you've filled it out. The result of that is basically we will contact you and see if you are interested in just having them consult with you. We don't charge for that. Basically, we want to get to know the districts out there as we're moving this from the university setting into the community, and see where we can be helpful, if at all, with this technology. So if you want, you can fill that out, and we will follow up with you. You can also, Alex, I guess, go to the product. I think it's the product page. And of course, as you saw here, you can read, if you're inclined, you can read all the research studies that undergird the system. The other thing that might be useful to you, I mean, obviously, if you want a free demo for us to show up for coffee and cookies on the internet, you can fill that out, and we'll schedule a time to just kind of take a deeper dive into the technology and answer your questions. But the other thing that you can actually do is get some sample interventions, both on the behavioral and the reading end, and it's on the bottom, I think, of the product page. Alex, you just want to scroll down to the bottom? I think it's there. Yep, there it is. Okay, all the way on the bottom, it says get my free intervention. So if you simply fill that out, you'll automatically have showing up in your email some samples of reading and behavioral interventions, so you can take a look at those as well. But at the end of the day, we want to try to be helpful. We're launching this out there as the universities have requested us to do. We want to learn from you, and that will both help us improve what we're doing, but also potentially give you an opportunity to play with the technology and see if it works for you. I will stop again now to see if there are any other questions, and see if not, if Linda and Alex, there's anything else that you will want to share with the group.
Well, first of all, I have a couple of things I'd like to share. Thank you again so much for taking the time to meet with us. Again, virtually, we've done a lot of this the last couple of years. So, in showing an interest in the work and the research we've done and the technology, I did want to make a couple comments. The purpose of creating ReadyCoach was not to replace in-person coaching, the personal touch, the collaborative relationship piece, but rather to bring in technology to enhance the effectiveness and structure of coaching in schools. So again, we do in-person training. We're doing coaching all over New Jersey and other states here as well. But the technology is to create a value added, because we found through our school partners that they needed a structure and a support system in which classroom teachers and coaches, or school leaders, because we've had school leaders who are excellent coaches as well, can interact with each other between meetings when you're very busy as well, and also to monitor data in real time when it's convenient for both partners. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you so much, because we learn a ton from our school partners, and also about new educational needs that we potentially could address or get you resources to help you with. Thank you again.
Same for me. I really appreciate your work. I know as a former educator, staying after school for a webinar is not an easy feat. So thank you for your time. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. I know we could only kind of scratch the surface, but yeah, our doors are open. Our desire as researchers is always to bring the science to you in a way that's accessible. So you know, we're willing to help in any kind of way we can. So again, Jason, Linda, and I are here to chat anytime.
Okay, with that, we will wish you all a good late afternoon or evening, a wonderful week. We will post the recording on the website within the next week or so, and we wish you the best and hope to chat with you again.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Everyone, thanks so much.